What is up, my friends? I just got out of a special screening for Warfare. This is a brand new combat film directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. I got to see this film in IMAX, which was phenomenal, and it was also followed by a Q&A with the directors, which I found really interesting. This will be my out-of-theater reaction as well as my spoiler-free review. I decided just to come home because, guys, this movie hit me really hard. Honestly, going in, I didn't really know what to expect. All I know is that I love pretty much anything that Alex Garland touches. I just wish he would have shaken my hand so I could learn to love myself. But besides that, I just seen a trailer and I also knew that this wasn't just based on a true story. This was a movie told entirely from the memories of the individuals that were there. Also, Ray Mendoza, the director, after him and Alex Garland collaborated on Civil War, this was basically a chance for him to tell one of his stories. And so I was excited. I knew nothing about this story, and then I sat down and I had one of the most thrilling, heartbreaking, intense 90 minutes that I've probably ever had during a combat film in theaters. It was truly one of the most unique war experiences that I've ever honestly been a part of. It feels like that because it's so immersive. I come from a household where we put war films front and center. When I was growing up, it was like Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, The Patriot. Those were always on. My dad's a massive history buff, and so I've always had a lot of respect for the men and women that have served this country. And every time a new war movie rolls around, I always get excited, like Lone Survivor, American Sniper. It's always cool, but this was extremely different than any of those, and it's hard to say it's different because they're both about combat, but a lot of times the big Hollywood productions, they have kind of a glorification of things, you know, there's an embellishment of things, an exaggeration, and with this, you're truly just placed there with these guys. The lengths that they went to make everything so specific, right down to every single detail, from the radio calls to the clothes that they're wearing to the practical sets that they built, the lack of CGI that's used, it truly just feels like you're on this mission. And it's very similar to maybe like a Lone Survivor or some of these other films, if you've seen them, where the action and the danger and the drama, it just kind of escalates as you go on. Things escalate, and then all of a sudden things happen really quick, and these guys are just right in the middle of it. And what's important to come back to is that these are real memories. These are things that happened. Like, these are things that people actually witnessed and had to go through and had to suffer through. And there's a very important story in there, but it's not trying to tell you really what that story is. And that comes back to the Q&A, which I learned a lot of really valuable information, specifically from Alex Garland, because he was talking about Civil War. And if you saw Civil War, whether you live in America or not, but like living here in the States, during that time, it was a very politically heated time in our country. And everybody was talking about how this Civil War movie is going to come out and like, oh man, what kind of stance are they going to take, or what side are they going to be on, or blah, blah, blah. And then this movie comes out, and Alex Garland literally takes zero stance, and he makes one of the most beautifully unbiased war films you'll ever see. You watch things through the perspective of wartime journalists, and it you know, to me, Civil War, it blew my mind last year. And so seeing that they were doing something kind of similar excited me, but I didn't know just how similar it was going to be. And that's when they compared it to this film. They were talking about how much they wanted to take that same approach, and they absolutely succeeded in that. You're just there to watch this story play out. There's nothing that's going to be slapping you in the face. There's nothing that's going to be trying to manipulate you whatsoever. You get to take from this story what you want. Something else that might surprise you is that this film has zero music. Nothing. All that you hear is these guys yelling at each other and radio calls nonstop back and forth, like exactly what would be happening if you were there. And none of this would work without the cast. And I do want to highlight the cast a little bit because they were so good. I mean, I think the names that you're going to recognize the most would be like Joseph Quinn. He's really, really great. You have Will Poulter. You have Michael Gandolfini, who is really having a season right now with Daredevil Born Again. It's a lot of fun, and he's great in it. But the three that I want to call out are Cosmo Jarvis, who I'd never really heard of, Charles Melton, who I had heard of, but he was terrific, and then Defaro Wunatai, which I had never heard of this young kid, but he plays Ray Mendoza. It might sound like I'm trying to highlight like an MVP of this film, but again, this is a different sort of film. It doesn't have a main character, and even though one of the characters is playing the director of the movie, it's not necessarily told from his perspective. It's not necessarily told from anybody's perspective. Also, something that they had said in the Q&A and just about these actors actors was that youth was really important, and they wanted to portray that and get that right. A lot of times in these big budget films, we're seeing actors that are like in their 30s, but they're supposed to be playing somebody who's maybe 24. A lot of these people that are in these combat situations are really young, and so seeing a cast like this, seeing a bunch of young guys going through this and hearing about the training and everything they had to endure to get ready for this, and they were actually working with the real people that were there, it makes it feel that much more lived in and that much more real. You feel the weight of these problems, and something that affected me on a really deep level was like before the screening, I got there and I sat next to a vet. I sat next to a veteran who served for 23 years. He was serving during the time frame of this movie, and this is potentially somebody that has been through stuff like this. And so sitting there and watching this movie next to somebody like that, obviously I'm just watching it as like a fan, somebody who loves film, who appreciates this art, but he's watching it for different reasons, you know what I mean? And he's there, he's happy that Ray Mendoza is putting this thing on and putting this movie out there and showing this kind of story. But what really affected me emotionally was just sitting there and watching this film and kind of feeling the energy of the person next to me who was having, again, a completely different experience, and talking to him afterwards and just seeing and listening to the emotion coming from him. It was beautiful, but it was also tragic. And it's one of those things where it's like people have so many different opinions and political opinions when it comes to war and combat and all of these situations, and sometimes they're justified, sometimes they're not justified, but the fact of the matter is there are people that are doing these things. No matter what, there are real people out there doing these things, and a lot of those people live in society amongst us, and they've seen some of these horrors in person. And it's not until you see a movie like this from the perspective that it is, and you witness these horrors, it's as close to the real thing as you can possibly get. But then you're sitting next to somebody who could have gone through that, and it just hits you in the face. It hit me like a ton of bricks, because I'm just like, man, I take so much for granted. You know what I mean? And this guy went through so much, and so that was a beautiful thing. Shout out to him. I'm not going to say his name, but if he does watch this, dude, I appreciate you so much. But honestly, back to Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza and this film Warfare, I just think anybody that wants to go and have an experience like this, please get out to the theater and watch this movie, because A24 took a chance on this thing, and they're one of the best studios in the game right now at just giving that voice to some of these storytellers and putting that up on the big screen. But all of that goes away if people don't get out and go see movies like this. And so please get out and see it. I hope you guys do. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I absolutely loved Warfare. Since I have to give it a star rating, I will give it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I got no doubt about that, man. But that's about it for today, my friends. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here. Make sure to hit that like button. But more than anything, keep up the good vibes. I'll see you in the next video. Peace!